I've worked the night shift at the county morgue for over 5 years. It's not a glamorous job, and it sure as hell isn't for the faint of heart, but I've always been the kind of person who prefers silence over chaos. The dead, they don't talk back, they don't argue, they don't ask questions. They just lie there, cold and still, frozen in the moment their life ended. It's a strange kind of peace, or at least it used to be. 2 nights ago, everything changed. I clocked in like it was 11 p.m. sharp. The hallways of the morgue were dimly lit, humming with the soft fluorescent buzz that never seemed to stop. I took my seat in the observation room, a small glass-paneled office overlooking the body storage units. There were 6 cadavers in total that night. Standard mix: 2 heart attacks, 1 car accident, an overdose, a suicide, and a John Doe found in the river. I remember that one clearly. They'd pulled him out early that morning. No ID, no tattoos. Skin pale and bloated from days in the water. His eyes were still open when they wheeled him in. That stuck with me, for some reason. Midnight rolled around quietly, the usual stillness settling in. I was halfway through a stale vending machine sandwich when I heard a metallic click, like the gentle rattle of something shifting on steel rails. I turned my head toward the storage drawers. Everything looked fine. But then, I noticed it. Drawer number 4, the one housing the John Doe, was slightly ajar, just a sliver. My first thought was mechanical failure. These old units weren't exactly I got up, muttering about faulty hydraulics, and made my way over. When I reached the drawer, I hesitated. Something felt wrong. There was a faint, almost imperceptible warmth in the air, like someone had just exhaled near me. I slid the drawer open the rest of the way, expecting to see the John Doe exactly as we'd left him. But his position had changed. His arms, previously folded neatly across his chest, were now lying at his sides. His head was turned slightly, just a few degrees to the left, facing me, and those eyes, they were closed now. I stepped back. My hands were trembling, and a cold sweat was starting to form on the back of my neck. There were no other staff in the building, no visitors. No way this body could have moved. I stood there staring at the corpse, trying to rationalize what I was seeing. Maybe someone had repositioned him during the day. Maybe the drawer's vibration caused a subtle shift. But that didn't explain the eyes. That didn't explain the feeling. I closed the drawer gently, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Just my mind playing tricks. Stress, fatigue happens all the time in this line of work, especially during the graveyard shift. But the night didn't let me forget. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the temperature in the observation room dropped. One moment I was sweating through my scrubs. The next I could see my breath in the air. The vents weren't active. No open windows. I checked the thermostat. It still read 71 degrees. I stood there shivering, staring at the row of drawers, heart pounding like a drum. That's when I heard it. A breath. Not mine. A slow, rasping inhale, then an exhale. It came from behind drawer number 4. I didn't move. I couldn't. That sounded slow, deliberate rasp of air pulling through lungs that shouldn't work anymore. I waited, held my own breath, hoping maybe it was a fluke, a trick of my ears or the building's plumbing letting out a groan. But it came again, louder this time, unmistakable. Something was breathing behind drawer number 4. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, maybe hours. Time seemed to bend around the silence, stretching and twisting, until the only thing that felt real was the sound. Then, as suddenly as it had started, the breathing stopped. The silence that followed was worse, not peaceful, like something was watching, waiting for me to make the next move. Eventually, my legs started working again. I backed away slowly, keeping my eyes locked on the drawers. I didn't even realize I'd left the observation room until I found myself in the hallway, my fingers clutching my phone so tight they ached. I didn't call anyone. What would I even say? Hey, the dead guy sat up and started breathing. I knew how that would go. I'd be benched, maybe worse. No one trusts a mortician who sees things. Still, I needed to do something. So I went back in. I told myself I'd imagined it. I told myself I was being ridiculous. But I also grabbed a scalpel from the prep room, just in case. I know how that sounds, but fear makes you strange. It rewires your logic until nothing seems too paranoid. When I returned, the drawers looked the same. All shut, all labeled. I stared at drawer number 4 for a long time before I finally opened it again. Slowly, quietly, the body was there, as expected. John Doe, bloated and pale. But there were new details now. His lips were slightly parted. There was condensation on the inside of the drawer, faint, but present, like warm breath against cold steel. And then I saw his fingers. They were bent differently, subtle but unmistakable, like he'd started to clench them into a fist. I stepped back again, and the scalpel in my hand trembled. This time, I didn't close the drawer. I just walked away. I sat back in the observation room, eyes wide, staring through the glass, waiting for any sign of movement. None came. Not that hour, not the next, but at 4:44 a.m. something else happened. The power flickered. Just for a second, the lights dimmed, and the monitors glittered. When they came back, all 6 camera feeds were frozen. Every screen showed the same still image. The hallway outside cold storage, and in that image, just barely visible in the reflection of the steel door, was a shape, tall, thin, human, but ... off. Like its proportions were just slightly wrong. Like it was wearing the form of a man, but not perfectly. I ran into the hallway. Nothing. I checked the door locked from the inside. No one had entered or left. I returned to the observation room and rewound the footage. Nothing was recorded. It was like the last 60 seconds didn't exist. I stared at the screens for a long time after that. I didn't blink. I didn't move. I just sat there, heart hammering, waiting for something else to break through the silence. And at 5:01, it did. Not sound. Not movement. A smell. Sharp. Coppery. The kind of smell that only comes from open wounds. I followed it, slowly, down the hallway and back into cold storage. The air was still. Drawer number 4 was still open. But now, there was blood on the floor. A smear, about 2 inches wide, leading from the edge of the drawer and vanishing beneath the next one down. I crouched down slowly, following the thin smear of blood across the tile. It wasn't a lot, just a line, shallow and deliberate, like someone had dragged a finger dipped in red across the floor. The smear stopped beneath drawer number 5, which held a young man in his 20s, who'd overdosed 3 days prior. I hesitated. The drawer was still sealed, the tag untouched, but the blood ... it had to have come from somewhere. I reached forward and, with trembling hands, pulled the drawer open. The body inside hadn't moved. His face was still slack with death, his lips tinged blue, his skin waxy and sunken, but his left hand was smeared in blood, fresh, wet, and the fingers were curled inwards, like they'd just released something. I stared at that hand for what felt like an eternity. My mind raced through possibilities. Cross-contamination. Someone playing a sick joke. But I was alone. I'd been alone for hours. No one else had touched these drawers. I closed it again, carefully, and backed away. I wanted to leave. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to get out, to call someone, anyone, and let them deal with whatever was happening here. But I didn't. I went back to the observation room and locked the door. Not because I thought it would help, but because I needed the illusion of safety. The smell of blood still clung to me, sharp and metallic in the back of my throat. I sat down, staring at the monitors, fingers twitching against my knees. That's when I saw something shift on screen. The camera angle that looked down the hall toward cold storage flickered, then focused. For a second, just a single, frozen frame, I saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway, not moving. Just standing. It wasn't wearing anything identifiable, just pale skin, stretched too tight over a thin frame. Its head was tilted to one side, and I swear it was looking directly into the camera. Then the feed cut to black. I jumped out of my chair, ran to the hallway. It was empty, but the air was wrong. Heavy, like walking through molasses. Every step forward felt like a mistake. I checked every door. Luck, no one, nothing. But when I returned to cold storage, drawer number 4 was open again. I hadn't touched it. I would have heard it. But there it was, fully extended. The John Doe inside staring straight up. And his mouth was open now, stretched impossibly wide, wider than a human jaw should go. His lips were cracked and torn. The skin around his cheeks split from the tension. His eyes were rolled back, showing only the whites. I stumbled back and hit the wall hard enough to knock the air from my lungs. I don't know how I didn't scream. I wanted to. Every instinct in my body was begging for release. But something held it down. Something told me not to make a sound. I closed the drawer again, as gently as I could. I locked it, taped it, shut. Then I sat in the corner of the room, scalpel in hand, staring at it. I didn't blink for the rest of the night. At 6:14, the overhead lights flickered back to life. The cameras returned to normal. The hallway was empty. The air was still. The blood was gone. I checked the floor, the drawers, everything. Not a single trace. It was like none of it had happened, but I remembered every second, every sound, every breath that wasn't mine. And when the day crew arrived, I didn't say a word. I just smiled, clocked out, walked to my car. But in the rearview mirror, I swear I saw something move in the back seat. When I turned around, there was nothing there. Nothing except the faint smell of river water and decay, clinging to the upholstery like it had always belonged there. I told myself I wouldn't go back. After that night, I promised I was done with the morgue. Done with the whispers and the vents and the things that moved when no one was watching. But promises mean nothing when rent is due and your options are thin. So a week later, I returned. Not because I was brave, but because fear loses its edge when survival demands obedience. Everything looked normal. The drawers were closed. The air smelled of bleach and refrigeration. The John Doe had been buried, at least. That's what the log said. But when I checked the files, something didn't sit right. His intake sheet was missing. No fingerprints. No dental match. The burial record was typed, unsigned. There was no name on the grave. Just the number 13 to 107. I asked around quietly. The supervisor shrugged it off. Probably a clerical error, he said, eyes not meeting mine. But I saw the way his hands twitched, the way his voice dropped at the end. He knew something, or he'd seen something too. That night, the silence felt heavier. Not like before, not threatening, just full, like the morgue wasn't empty anymore. At 2:03 a.m., the camera feeds glitched again. Only for a second, but when they came back, drawer number 4 was open. I'd watched it the entire time. It hadn't moved. Not physically, but there it was, pulled halfway out, and in the gap something shimmered. A shadow that didn't belong. I walked toward it. This time, I wasn't holding a scalpel. I wasn't holding anything. I don't know if I'd given up or just accepted what was coming. I placed my hand on the edge of the drawer. Cold. Metal. Familiar. I slid it open the rest of the way. Just an empty space lined in stainless steel. But on the inner wall, scratched deep into the metal, was a message. 7 words. I am still here. You let me in. I stumbled back, heart pounding so loud I could hear it echo. I slammed the drawer shut and locked it. I didn't sleep the rest of the shift. I haven't slept much since. Things have changed, not just at work, inside me. Sometimes I dream I'm floating. Cold, breathless, watching the world from behind a pane of glass. I wake up gasping, like I've been underwater. My skin smells like the river. I started hearing things outside the morgue. Whispers in stairwells. Movement in mirrors. Once I saw my own reflection blink before I did. It smiled when I didn't. I told a friend. Just one. He laughed, then paused. That body you told me about. When was that? I gave him the date. His face went pale. That same week, a guy went missing downtown. No ID, no prints. No one claimed him. They never found the body. I asked what the man looked like. He pulled up a blurry photo, and my stomach dropped. It was him. The John Doe. The face that should have rotted in drawer number 4. But it wasn't just recognition. It was something else. Familiarity, like I'd seen him before that night. Like he'd been watching me long before we met. I haven't been back to the morgue in 2 weeks. But every night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., the lights in my apartment flicker. The air grows cold, and somewhere, faint and wet, I hear that same breath. Inhale, exhale. He's not in the drawer anymore. I think he followed me home.